Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever found yourself thinking about someone every single day, even though they haven't said a word to you in weeks or even months? That's not a sign of love. That's a signal from your soul that something deeper needs healing. You see, when someone lives in your mind without showing up in your life, it's not destiny. It's emotional self-neglect. And today we're going to talk about how to break that cycle, take your power back, and finally stop chasing ghosts in your mind. Stay with me. This could change everything. When someone lives in your mind without ever reaching out, it's not always about love. It's often about something unresolved inside of you. The absence of communication leaves behind a vacuum, and your thoughts try to fill that space with memories. Imagine conversations and silent hopes. This is not a reflection of the bond you share. It's a reflection of the wounds you haven't healed. The human heart is designed to seek closure, and when it doesn't receive it, the mind keeps the person alive in thoughts. But holding on in silence can be the loudest form of suffering. It's the mind's way of holding on to a story that your soul may have already outgrown. Thinking about him constantly doesn't mean he's your destiny. It often means you're still learning to release. When communication stops, but mental attachment grows stronger, it's a sign that you are clinging to a version of him that existed in a moment, not in reality. It's your own heart asking to be set free. You see, silence has a strange power. It creates room for illusions to thrive. In the absence of new words, your mind replays old ones, sometimes rewriting them in a more favorable light. You start romanticizing the pain, thinking maybe there was something deeper in that silence. But the truth is, if he cared, he'd show up. If you mattered, you wouldn't be left wondering. You wouldn't be having conversations with his ghost while he lives on without thinking twice. Yet you stay trapped in a loop, hoping the universe will send him back, hoping he'll realize what he lost. That hope becomes a weight, and the longer you carry it, the heavier it becomes. The harsh truth is, if you're always thinking of him, while he's gone without a trace, it says more about your loneliness than his love. There's no shame in remembering someone. Emotions don't disappear overnight. Healing isn't a straight line, but the danger lies in confusing your thoughts for a sign. Just because he crosses your mind daily doesn't mean he belongs there. Sometimes the mind fixates on what it couldn't understand or accept. You keep going back because you never got closure. And you think by obsessing over it, you might finally get the answer. But here's the truth. You don't want to hear. Sometimes closure doesn't come from others. It comes when you finally decide you don't need it to move on. It comes when you realize your worth is not tied to someone's silence. Your peace shouldn't be dependent on someone else's absence or presence. What hurts most is not the lack of communication. It's the feeling of being left behind. Without an explanation, the silence feels like rejection. The thoughts feel like torture. And yet we cling to it because it's all that's left. It becomes a habit. Every morning starts with a memory. Every night ends with a question. And in between you wear a smile for the world, while your soul is screaming for closure. But how long will you live in this state of emotional limbo? How long will you let someone who doesn't even speak to you have control over your joy, your mind, your heart? You deserve better than answered questions. You deserve more than lingering thoughts. You deserve presence. You deserve effort. You deserve to be chosen every single day. Thinking about him constantly may feel like love, but it's often the mind's way of replaying trauma. It's your heart trying to rewrite the ending to make sense of the pain. But you have to ask yourself, am I in love with him, or am I in love with the fantasy I created to survive the pain of losing him? Because the two are very different. One is rooted in reality. The other is rooted in longing. Longing is a liar. It makes you believe the past was perfect, that the absence means fate. That silence is depth, but real love doesn't confuse you. Real love shows up. It speaks. It assures. It doesn't make you question your worth every single day. At some point, you have to take your power back. That doesn't mean you stop caring instantly or that you force yourself to forget. It means you shift your focus. You stop analyzing his silence and start listening to your own voice. You stop waiting for a message and start sending yourself love. You stop asking why he left and start asking why you stayed so long in that mental prison. Your healing begins the moment you realize you've been talking to someone who no longer hears you, that you've been keeping someone alive in your heart who has already walked away. And it's not bitterness, it's clarity. Clarity that says, this chapter is done, and I deserve to live the next one fully. Letting go isn't about deleting memories or pretending he never existed. It's about honoring what was, learning from it, and not letting it define your future. It's about releasing the grip of mental obsession and welcoming peace. It's not easy. The nights will still ache. The dreams will still come. But every time you choose yourself over the thought of him, you reclaim a little piece of your power. You remind your heart that it's safe to move on. You remind your mind that it doesn't have to dwell in the past to feel something. Feeling alive doesn't require his memory. It requires your presence, your strength, your light. You have to stop confusing silence with mystery. You have to stop thinking his absence holds secret meaning. Sometimes it's just that absence. Sometimes people don't come back. Not because you weren't enough, but because they were never meant to stay. The silence is not a puzzle to solve. It's a mirror showing you how much you need your own love. Stop shrinking yourself for the echo of someone who couldn't see your value. Stop pausing your life for someone who's already moved on. You are not meant to wait in the dark. You are meant to shine boldly, brightly, unapologetically. The mind will wander. That's what it does. But the heart must lead. And the heart knows when something no longer serves you. If he's always on your mind without giving you a single word, take it as the lesson it is. The proof of soul connection. But the reminder of self-neglect. Every moment you give to someone who isn't giving back is a moment stolen from your growth. Pour that energy into yourself. Build a life so full of purpose that there's no room left for unanswered questions. Because in the end, it's not about who stayed in your mind. It's about who showed up in your life. And more than anyone else, that should be you. Your mind is a powerful storyteller capable of turning fragments into fantasies. When someone stops communicating but continues to live in your thoughts, it's easy to believe that it means something deeper. The brain starts crafting scenarios, rewriting history, and convincing you that their silence is mysterious rather than final. But thoughts are not proof. Just because he's constantly in your mind doesn't mean he belongs in your life. The mind confuses repetition with importance. What's thought about often feels meaningful, but that's not always true. Sometimes it's just your brain trying to solve an emotional puzzle with missing pieces, and when there's no clarity, you begin to fill in the blanks with your hopes, not facts. That's how emotional illusions are born. It's natural to yearn for what once brought you comfort, especially when it ends abruptly. The mind holds on to familiarity like a lifeline, but romanticizing a person who doesn't show up in your reality is dangerous. You start building a fantasy around someone who is no longer showing effort, no longer communicating, and no longer participating. What you're holding on to is no longer him, but the idea of him softened, beautified, and idealized by memory. That's where pain deepens. You compare every silence in the present with the warmth of the past. You hold on because it felt real once, and your heart refuses to accept that the reality has shifted, but people show you who they are in their absence, as much as they do in their presence. True connection doesn't live in your thoughts alone. It exists in effort, presence, and shared moments. If he isn't communicating, there is a message in that silence. Silence is not a blank space to decorate with imagination. It's a loud statement. And if you're the only one reaching out in your mind while he remains absent, that's not love. That's emotional abandonment. Holding space for someone who no longer holds space for you is a form of self-betrayal. It may feel noble to wait to hope, to think about him constantly, but hope can sometimes be the rope that keeps you tied to pain. Real relationships are built in real time with real words and real energy. Everything else is fiction you're writing to protect your heart. You may find yourself wondering why you can't stop thinking about him. The reason is rarely about him and almost always about you. It's not always love that keeps someone in your thoughts. It's usually an emotional need that's gone unmet. When those needs go unfulfilled, the mind keeps bringing him back because it doesn't want to let go of the source. But if someone's silence is louder than their love ever was, you're being shown the truth. The illusion you're holding on to is a barrier between you and your healing. Letting go of that illusion feels like grief, but it's actually growth. The harsh truth is, if someone isn't speaking to you, they're not choosing you, and you deserve to be chosen. Not just in memory, not just in secret thoughts, but out loud and in action. Love that hides behind silence is not love. It's absence. And the longer you make excuses for someone who's missing, the longer you keep yourself stuck. It's easier to cling to a memory than to face the reality of being left behind. But healing begins with truth. It begins when you acknowledge that silence isn't love waiting to be unlocked. It's love that never fully showed up. And you deserve more than mental rehearsals of conversations that will never happen. Your mind will keep circling back, especially in moments of quiet and vulnerability, but you have the power to interrupt that pattern. You can choose to stop feeding the fantasy. You can remind yourself of the facts of what actually happened. Not what you wished happened. Not what you imagine he might be thinking, but the truth of his absence. The more you anchor yourself in reality, the less appealing the fantasy becomes. It's not easy. It's a conscious effort. But each time you stop the thought, each time you redirect your focus, you are reclaiming yourself. You're telling your mind, this story is over, and I'm writing a new one. Now, many people confuse emotional obsession with destiny. They think constant thoughts mean a soul tie or divine connection. But sometimes the mind gets stuck on loops, simply because it wasn't given closure. The lack of resolution becomes a mental itch, constantly begging to be scratched. And in trying to resolve it, you replay it, relive it, and romanticize it. But the mind will always search for meaning in chaos. It doesn't like loose ends. That doesn't mean the person is special. It just means your heart wants peace, and your brain is trying to create it through imaginary conversations. True peace comes when you stop needing their words and start choosing your own. No matter how strong the thoughts are, remember this. Love doesn't live in imagination. It lives in reality. It's the text you receive, the calls you return, the conversations that matter, the time someone gives you. If someone is not showing up in any of these ways, their place in your mind must shrink. You cannot continue to let someone occupy your mental space when they refuse to show up in your life. That's not love. That's emotional self-harm. And the first step to freedom is to recognize that not every person who stays in your mind deserves to stay in your heart. Some thoughts need to be released, not romanticized. It's hard to let go of what once made you feel alive. It's painful to accept that someone who meant so much to you now lives only in your memory, but there's freedom in that acceptance. There's clarity in realizing that not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Some people come to teach you how to value yourself, even through their silence. And once you learn the lesson, you no longer need the pain. Your mind will still drift back from time to time, but now you'll have the wisdom to say that's the past. My life is happening now. And you'll return to the present where healing, growth, and self-love are waiting for you. You're not weak because you think of him. You're human. You're not broken because you can't forget. You're healing. But don't confuse constant thoughts with a sign that he's meant to be yours. Don't make excuses for someone's silence. Don't carry a ghost on your back. You have a future that needs you, a present that's waiting for your attention, and a soul that deserves peace. Let your mind wander, but always guided back home. Back to truth, back to reality, back to yourself. Because the real love story isn't the one you had with him. It's the one you're about to write with yourself. If he's always on your mind but never in your life, it's not a sign to chase. It's a sign to pause. The mind clings to people who once made us feel seen, even if that connection no longer exists. When there's no communication and yet he occupies your every thought, it's time to look inward. This isn't about him anymore. It's about the part of you that is still craving validation, attention, and emotional safety. Often the mind creates a loop around someone, not because they're special, but because you haven't yet learned how to give yourself what they once gave you. You replay the moments, the words, the feelings, not realizing you're feeding an illusion. But healing doesn't happen in replay mode. Healing begins when you stop reaching outward and start asking why you're not giving yourself the same love you once waited for from someone else. The presence of a person in your thoughts, especially without effort from their side, is not proof of destiny. It's a reflection of emotional hunger. You may be holding on to him in your mind because somewhere, deep inside, you still feel empty without that attachment, but no one outside you can fill a void that was never theirs to fill. That longing you feel isn't just for him. It's a cry from your soul to meet your own needs. We're conditioned to believe that love means thinking of someone constantly, but that's not love. That's emotional dependency. It's what happens when we base our worth on someone else's presence. But the more you wait for them to return or explain, the further you drift from your own power. And power is never found in someone's silence. It's found in how you respond to it. It's not weakness that makes you think of him. It's habit. This habit is felt in you. Music habit is made of the moments, of decisions, and claims. It's found in the moments of silence. It's found in how you respond to it. It's habit. It's the muscle memory of love. But just because a thought arises doesn't mean it deserves your attention. Your mind is trained to return to what's familiar. And if he was once your emotional center, it makes sense he'd still appear in your thoughts. But if he's not showing up in your life, your growth depends on untraining that mental pattern. The truth is, the longer you romanticize his absence, the longer you delay your own healing. He is not the answer to your emptiness. He is not the solution to your pain. He's the mirror that reveals your need for deeper self-connection. And once you understand that, your thoughts start shifting from obsession to awareness. You don't need to fight your thoughts. You need to listen to what they're trying to teach you. Every time your mind goes back to him, ask yourself, what part of you feels unseen right now? What need is crying out for attention? What emotion are you avoiding? Your thoughts aren't betraying you. They're signaling that something inside still needs love. But that love doesn't have to come from someone else. It can come from you. You can be the one to soothe, to comfort, to listen. The healing begins when you stop making it about him and start making it about you, not in a selfish way, but in a necessary way. It's music. These are the 6 phases that make up the work, that entitled you to him. Not in the sense of making you the victim. The victim loses. Sense of because self-focus is not vanity. It's survival. When someone stops communicating with you, it doesn't mean you stop existing. But that's exactly how we act. Like we're frozen in time, waiting for them to validate our importance. The mind keeps them alive, because it's trying to protect you from the pain of moving on. But moving on isn't erasia, it's evolution. You're allowed to outgrow people who can't meet you where you are. You're allowed to stop waiting for someone who no longer waits for you. The mind may resist, but your soul knows the truth. And the truth is you deserve presence. You deserve attention. You deserve love that doesn't leave you guessing. Thinking about him endlessly won't bring him back, but turning inward will bring you back to yourself. Emotional growth begins the moment you realize your thoughts are not always telling you the truth. They tell you stories based on memory, fear, and longing, but not always reality. Just because you think about him constantly doesn't mean he's meant to be in your future. It often means there's something unresolved in your past. And the only way to truly resolve it is to stop running from yourself. The more you chase him in your thoughts, the further you run from your healing. You have to sit with the discomfort. You have to stop distracting yourself with what ifs and start focusing on what is. And what is true now is that he's not here. But you are, and you are enough. You don't need his words to feel validated. You don't need his presence to feel whole. You're not broken because he left. You're becoming because you stayed. Let every thought of him be a signal to reconnect with your own spirit. Let every wave of longing guide you deeper into your own soul. You can't change the past, but you can change your focus. And your focus is the foundation of your future. Build it on truth. Build it on presence. Build it on the understanding that no one can replace your relationship with yourself. If he's always on your mind without giving anything back, let that imbalance wake you up. Let it shake you into awareness. You are not here to be a placeholder in your own life while waiting for someone to notice you. You are here to live boldly, fully, and unapologetically. And that begins by confronting the hard truth. You've been giving more to a memory than you've been giving to yourself. Shift that energy. Pour that love back into your own life. Create new routines. Pursue new passions. Surround yourself with people who reflect your worth. Healing isn't just about letting go. It's about leaning into yourself, into your potential, into your future. The mind will wander. That's okay. Let it wander, but don't let it rule you. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. You are the one who can choose which thoughts to feed and which to release. And every time you choose to release the thought of someone who doesn't choose you, music, you take your power back. You reclaim space. You make room for what's real, what's mutual, what's healthy. Thinking about him doesn't make you weak. But choosing to stop letting that thought define you, that makes you unstoppable. Let him fade. Let the silence echo and then let yourself rise. You are not bound by who you used to love. You are not imprisoned by the thoughts that return in the quiet moments. You are free to rewrite the story. Free to detach, free to rise. Music. His absence is not your failure, it's your freedom. The space he left behind was never meant to be a void. It was meant to be a doorway. And on the other side of that door is a version of you who is whole, powerful, and no longer waiting. Step into her. She's already waiting for you.